Welcome to my channel, Most Worth Coins WC, where history lives in your hands. If you're passionate about rare coins, vintage currency, and the fascinating stories behind them, you're in the right place. Don't forget to watch the full video, share it with your fellow collectors. Like and subscribe to stay updated with more valuable content every week. So, let's get started. The 1980p Roosevelt dime, a modern clad classic in American coinage. In the vast and evolving history of United States coinage, few designs have endured the test of time as consistently as the Roosevelt dime. The 1980p Roosevelt dime represents not only a continuation of this series but also a subtle milestone in U.S. mint policy. It stands as the very first dime issued by the Philadelphia Mint to bear the P Mint Marquand edition that marked a significant shift in how the mint identified its coinage. Prior to this date, dimes produced in Philadelphia carried no mint mark, which often made distinguishing them from other mint coins difficult for collectors and researchers. The simple appearance of the letter P on the obverse, seemingly modest, actually reflects decades of changes in minting standards, public interest in coin collecting, and evolving attitudes within the U.S. Mint. The Roosevelt dime itself was first introduced in 1946, the year following President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's death. He was chosen to replace the winged Liberty Mercury dime not only for his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II, but also for his personal struggle with polio and his founding of the March of Dimes, a campaign that aligned perfectly with the coin's denomination. The obverse side of the 1980 Roosevelt dime is dominated by a left-facing bust of Franklin D. Roosevelt, sculpted and engraved by John R. Seneck, the chief engraver of the United States Mint at the time. The profile captures Roosevelt's strong features with careful linear texture and curvature that mimic realism while remaining suitable for mass production in a small coin format. To the left of Roosevelt's face, in bold block letters, appears the word Liberty, a hallmark of American coinage design since the nation's earliest mints. Below Roosevelt's chin, just above the rim, lies the motto "In God We Trust," a phrase rooted in Civil War-era sentiments and officially adopted for all U.S. coins in 1955, though it had appeared on many coins long before. To the right, the date 1980 is inscribed neatly near the neckline, and just above it, the small but historically significant P mint mark makes its inaugural appearance on a Roosevelt dime. The placement of this letter changed numismatic identification practices, particularly for those analyzing mint errors, die varieties, or regional circulation patterns. Moving to the reverse of the coin, the 1980 Roosevelt dime continues a design that symbolizes strength, peace, and unity. At the center stands a classical torch, its flame representing the eternal fire of liberty, echoing the design language used in monuments such as the Statue of Liberty. Flanking the torch are two distinct branches, an olive branch on the left, signifying peace and diplomacy, and an oak branch on the right, a symbol of strength, resolve, and civic endurance. These three elements are linked by a common base, just above which is inscribed the Latin motto, E pluribus unum, which means out of many, one, a phrase emphasizing the unity of the American states. Arching around the top rim of the reverse is the inscription United States of America, while the denomination 1 dime curves along the bottom. The balance in this symmetrical layout allows for instant recognition and reflects classical design principles. In terms of composition, the 1980p Roosevelt dime was struck using the copper-nickel-clad format introduced in 1965, after the Coinage Act of 1965 eliminated silver from circulating dimes and quarters. This act was a response to rising silver prices and hoarding, which threatened the nation's coin supply. The core of the dime is pure copper, sandwiched between outer layers composed of a 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy, giving the coin its characteristic silvery appearance. This composition ensured durability while lowering production costs. The coin has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, a thickness of 1.35 millimeters, and weighs approximately 2.27 grams. Its reeded edge, a security feature originally designed to prevent the shaving of precious metals from silver coins, remains as a vestigial mark of tradition and trust. From a production standpoint, the Philadelphia Mint struck an impressive 735,170,000 Roosevelt dimes in 1980. This high mintage number ensured wide circulation across the nation, embedding this coin into the everyday transactions of millions of Americans, though it lacks the rarity of low mintage years or the allure of early 20th century silver issues. The 1980p dime commands attention from collectors interested in mint mark transitions, die varieties, and well-struck examples. Particular attention is paid to coins with strong details in the torch, especially those with well-defined full bands FB, the horizontal lines across the torch that are fully separated and visible. Full band specimens are more difficult to find and often carry premiums in the collector's market, especially in grades of MS65 or higher. Despite its relatively recent mintage, The 1980p Roosevelt dime holds cultural and historical significance beyond its face value. It belongs to a lineage of coins that reflect not only economic necessity and minting innovation, but also evolving public sentiment. Franklin Roosevelt's presence on the dime reminds every American of the fight against polio, the New Deal, and wartime resilience. In that sense, even the smallest denomination becomes a canvas for national memory. The addition of the P mint mark in 1980 modernized coinage, just enough to serve the needs of collectors and historians while retaining the core of Sinek's original tribute to Roosevelt. From a collector's perspective, most circulated 1980p dimes today hold only face value due to their abundance and lack of silver content. However, those in uncirculated conditions, especially those graded MS67 or higher, can fetch between $10 and $30, depending on strike sharpness, luster, and whether they exhibit full bands. Certified examples graded by PCGS or NGC, with clear, full torch detail, can serve as reference points for understanding the subtleties of modern clad minting and the challenges of obtaining perfect strikes in mass production. Additionally, transitional errors, such as off-center strikes, doubled dies, or planchet anomalies, occasionally surface in 1980 dimes and are coveted by specialists in mint eras. The 1980p Roosevelt dime is thus a study in transition, continuity, and the understated artistry of American coin design. It bridges the tradition of presidential commemorations with the pragmatism of modern minting, all while fitting snugly into the pocket of any citizen. Its value lies not in rarity or silver, but in the story it tells of changing times, advancing minting technologies, and enduring symbols of liberty and unity. As the first dime to carry the Philadelphia Mint's proud initial, it holds a permanent place in U.S. numismatic heritage. Whether found in a coin jar, a dealer's bin, or a certified slab, the 1980p dime invites us to appreciate the little pieces of history we so often overlook. The 1965 Roosevelt dime, a 10-cent coin of the United States, is a foundational piece in modern American numismatics, both symbolically and structurally. It was the first year that the United States officially abandoned the long-standing tradition of silver coinage for its dimes, quarters, and half dollars, an economic decision that altered the course of coin production and forever changed the materials, value, and aesthetic of everyday money in the United States. This particular dime stands as a monument to a turning point, when coinage was no longer backed by the intrinsic worth of precious metals but instead constructed of layered base metals, designed for practicality, stability, and long-term circulation. As the nation adjusted to growing inflation, rising demand for coinage, and the increasing cost of silver, the Coinage Act of 1965 was passed, eliminating 90% silver from the dime and quarter and initiating the clad coinage system, wherein outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy were bonded to a solid copper core. The 1965 Roosevelt dime was the first regular issued cents piece made using this new metallic composition and thus symbolizes a major economic shift in modern U.S. history. On its obverse, the 1965 dime features the familiar and now iconic left-facing profile of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States and the only U.S. president elected to 4 terms. His visage, designed by chief engraver John R. Sinek, was first introduced on the dime in 1946. 1 year after his death, Roosevelt was honored not only for his leadership through the Great Depression and World War II, but also for his establishment of the March of Dimes, a national campaign to combat infantile paralysis, known today as polio, from which he himself suffered. Sinek's design is both realistic and commemorative, capturing Roosevelt's strong jawline and composed expression. Along the upper left rim of the coin is the word Liberty, inscribed in a bold sans-serif font that stretches horizontally across the field. Just below Roosevelt's chin rests the powerful motto, "In God We Trust," an enduring phrase that began appearing on US coins during the Civil War and was later mandated by law in the 1950s. At the lower right, the date 1965 is clearly visible, stamped near the neckline, anchoring the coin in its historical period. Unlike most other U.S. coins, this piece bears no mint, though it was struck in Philadelphia and possibly even Denver. The U.S. Mint chose to eliminate all mint marks from 1965 to 1967 to discourage coin hoarding and reduce collector speculation during a time of economic strain and public uncertainty. The reverse side of the 1965 Roosevelt dime features a bold and timeless trio of national symbols that together represent the core ideals of American governance and identity. At the center stands a vertically placed torch, its flame, a traditional emblem of liberty and enlightenment. This flame signifies the illumination that freedom brings to a democratic society. Flanking the torch are 2 botanical branches. The left is an olive branch, symbolic of peace, diplomacy, and unity. On the right, an oak branch, long associated with strength, endurance, and justice. The deliberate arrangement of these 3 symbols suggests that peace and strength together support the flame of liberty. embodying Roosevelt's own ideals and the wartime philosophy he led with. Arched along the top of the reverse is the name of the issuing nation, United States of America, clearly declaring its sovereign origin. Just beneath the torch, in a neat, centered line, appears the Latin motto E pluribus unum, meaning out of many. One, a phrase that affirms the unity of the diverse American states. The denomination 1 dime wraps along the lower edge of the coin's rim, confirming the piece's face value. This classic design has remained consistent since its inception, standing the test of time with very few modifications across decades. The composition of the 1965 Roosevelt dime marked the beginning of a new era in coinage, replacing the earlier silver dimes. This piece is a copper-nickel-clad coin, consisting of a pure copper core encased in an outer layer composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. This construction gives the coin a durable and silvery appearance without the actual inclusion of precious metal. The decision to switch to clad coinage was the result of increasing silver prices and widespread hoarding of pre-1965 coins, which had begun to disappear from circulation. By issuing non-silver coins that looked similar in color and size to their silver predecessors, the U.S. Mint was able to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage without depending on precious metal reserves. The 1965 dime weighs approximately 2.27 grams, has a diameter of 17.91 millimeters, a thickness of 1.35 millimeters, and features a finely reeded edge, a historical feature originally intended to deter clipping or shaving silver from the edges. Even though the 1965 dime has no silver to clip, the reeded edge was retained for consistency and to maintain public confidence in the authenticity of the coin. Due to the historic transition and the absence of mint marks from 1965 to 1967, the 1965 Roosevelt dime was struck in vast numbers. Over 1.6 billion pieces were produced to meet public demand and ensure a smooth shift to clad coinage. All 1965 dimes were intended for circulation, and as such, there were no official proof sets issued that year, though the Mint would later produce special mint sets SMS for 1965, 1967 to offer collectors high-quality alternatives. The SMS versions of the 1965 dime display superior strike quality, a satin-like surface, and often sharper detail in the torch and branches, though they are distinguishable from true proof coins. These SMS dimes are collected separately and graded. Using the SP specimen scale, circulating 1965 dimes are extremely common and still regularly encountered in pocket change today. Most have little numismatic premium in circulated condition due to their high mintage and absence of precious metal. However, coins in high-grade mint state MS65 or higher with strong strikes, full torch details, known as full bands or FB, and pristine surfaces can command modest premiums among collectors. Top-graded SMS examples, especially those with cameo contrast or designated SP67, SP68, can fetch higher prices and are more actively sought after. From a historical and economic perspective, the 1965 Roosevelt dime reflects the shift from bullion-based currency to fiat-based coinage. The public's response to this change was initially cautious, as many citizens preferred the intrinsic value of silver coins and distrusted the new, lighter-weight clad versions. However, over time, the new dimes proved durable, functional, and visually consistent with their silver counterparts. This successful transition laid the foundation for the coinage system that remains in place today. Moreover, the 1965 dime continued to honor Roosevelt's memory and humanitarian contributions, linking a modern economic tool to a broader cultural narrative. Even though it bears no mint mark and contains no silver, the 1965 dime is far more than an everyday object. It is a piece of living history that represents innovation, adaptation, and the nation's capacity for economic flexibility. For collectors, the 1965 Roosevelt dime offers multiple avenues of interest. While circulated examples are ubiquitous and inexpensive, those assembling complete Roosevelt dime sets must include it as the beginning of the clad era. Collectors of transitional coins often prize this year as a key turning point. Additionally, specialists in die varieties or minting anomalies sometimes examine 1965 dimes for signs of doubling, off-center strikes, or unusual planchet errors. Although major rarities are uncommon, occasional mint errors from this high-output year have surfaced, including off-metal strikes and double dies, and these can be worth significantly more. Whether as an educational tool, a reminder of monetary evolution, or a connection to FDR's legacy, the 1965 dime offers far more than 10 cents of interest. The 1967 Roosevelt dime, produced during a transformative era in American coinage, is an enduring emblem of the economic and political shifts that shaped the nation's monetary system in the mid-20th century. Though small in size and often overlooked in everyday use, this dime represents a critical moment in U.S. numismatic history, the early years of the clad coinage era. The year 1967 falls just 2 years after the United States Mint removed silver from circulating dimes and quarters in response to rising silver prices and widespread hoarding, which had threatened the availability of small change. As such, the 1967 dime was part of a broader initiative to stabilize the nation's coinage supply using non-precious metals, minted during a 3-year span, 1965 to 1967, when the U.S. temporarily suspended mint marks and the issuance of collector sets. The 1967 Roosevelt dime lacks any mint mark even though it was struck at multiple facilities. This was a deliberate choice by the U.S. Mint to discourage hoarding, speculation, and collector-driven scarcity, thereby ensuring a consistent flow of coins into everyday commerce. The obverse of the 1967 Roosevelt dime features the familiar profile of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, 32nd President of the United States, facing left, sculpted by John Arsenac, the U.S. Mint's chief engraver at the time. The portrait is notable for its realism and dignity, capturing Roosevelt's determined expression and smooth features in a design that has remained largely unchanged since its introduction in 1946. The word Liberty appears in bold capital letters to the left, arching along the curve of the coin, framing Roosevelt's forehead and crown. Just below Roosevelt's chin lies the phrase, "In God We Trust," a phrase deeply embedded in American political and cultural identity. It has adorned us coins since the Civil War era and became legally mandated on all U.S. currency in 1955, reflecting the country's moral compass during the Cold War and its broader religious sentiments. Beneath Roosevelt's neck is the date, 1967, clear and central, with no accompanying mint mark, although many of these dimes were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. All 1967 dimes bear no mint, a unique characteristic for collectors seeking to distinguish coins based on production facility. Turning to the reverse, the 1967 Roosevelt dime maintains the same design it had carried since 1946, a striking symbolic trio that honors American values of liberty, peace, and strength. At the center stands a vertical torch, its flame flickering upward, symbolizing the enduring pursuit of freedom. To the left of the torch lies an olive branch, long associated with peace and diplomacy, while to the right appears an oak branch, representing strength, resilience, and civic unity. These symbols form a balanced composition that visually encapsulates the ideals upon which the nation was founded. Just beneath the flame, the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum, is inscribed across the torch's base, translating to out of many, one. This motto captures the essence of American federalism, the unity of the diverse states under one national identity. Encircling the top edge of the reverse is the inscription, United States of America, while the denomination, 1 dime, is found at the bottom, marking the coin's face value. This reverse layout, elegant in its symmetry and rich in symbolism, remains a hallmark of the Roosevelt dime to this day. Compositionally, the 1967 dime was made using the clad coinage format, introduced in 1965 to replace 90% silver content. It consists of a pure copper core sandwiched between 2 outer layers of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin a bright silvery appearance but with no intrinsic silver value. This decision by the U.S. Mint came during a time when silver prices were rising rapidly, and Americans were hoarding coins that contained silver, including dimes, quarters, and half dollars. By shifting to a clad composition, the Mint was able to maintain the coin's utility without tying its production to volatile silver markets. The 1967 Roosevelt dime weighs 2.27 grams, measures 17.91 millimeters in diameter, and has a thickness of 1.35 millimeters, with a reeded edge composed of 118 tiny grooves. These reeds once served as a practical anti-counterfeiting measure when coins contained valuable metal, but by 1967, they had become primarily decorative and traditional. The 1967 dime is also notable for being issued in a year when the U.S. Mint had suspended traditional proof and mint sets. Instead, it produced a special collector offering, known as the Special Mint Set SMS. These coins, although not proof coins in the traditional sense, were struck with a higher degree of care than ordinary circulation strikes and often featured a semi-proof-like or satin finish. SMS coins are distinguishable by their slightly sharper details and smoother fields, though they were not struck using the same multiple press process as true proofs. These sets were sold directly to collectors and contained one example of each denomination produced that year, including the cent, nickel, dime, quarter, and half dollar. Therefore, some 1967 dimes with higher quality surfaces can be found originating from SMS packaging, and these are typically more valuable than their circulated counterparts. In terms of mintage, the U.S. Mint produced an enormous quantity of 1967 dimes, well over 2.2 billion pieces, including circulation strikes and SMS issues, while exact totals from each mint facility remain somewhat obscure due to the suspension of mint marks. The massive mintage ensures that most 1967 Roosevelt dimes remain highly common today. This ubiquity means that in worn condition, they generally carry only face value. However, coins preserved in mint state MS65 or higher condition, especially those with exceptional luster and no contact marks, can be worth slightly more. SMS coins are of greater interest to collectors and are graded on a separate scale. Top-tier specimens, especially those certified by PCGS or NGC with designations, like SP67, SP68, or Cameo, Deep Cameo, can fetch higher premiums in new markets. Although often overlooked because of its commonness, the 1967 Roosevelt dime plays an important role in the broader narrative of U.S. coinage. It symbolizes the transition from silver to clad coins, a necessary but controversial shift in the country's monetary policy. Its lack of a mint mark sets it apart in the Roosevelt series, creating a distinct collecting opportunity. Furthermore, it captures a moment in American history when economic pragmatism dictated the direction of coin production. The dime, itself bearing Roosevelt's likeness, remains a tribute to a leader who guided the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, and who was instrumental in founding the March of Dimes to combat polio. This connection between coin and cause is rare in modern numismatics and offers a powerful reminder of the humanitarian potential embedded in something as simple as a 10-cent piece. For collectors today, the 1967 Roosevelt dime offers several avenues of interest. It is affordable and easily acquired in both circulated and uncirculated grades. It serves as an excellent entry point for new numismatists, particularly those studying mid-20th century U.S. coins. Those seeking higher-grade SMS versions or examples with exceptional eye appeal can challenge themselves with hunting down coins with strong strike quality, full torch details, and cameo surfaces. Although it may not promise great monetary return in most cases, the 1967 dime yields great educational and historical value. It encapsulates a crucial transition, not just in materials and minting strategy, but in the very philosophy of modern American coinage: utility over bullion, circulation over collector exclusivity, and the durability of symbolic design over fleeting trends.